There's a lot, I guess. What I guess the biggest one, in the first time I went in March, we went to Salah ad-Din camp in the north, and this was sort of recently set up after Cass led a bunch of tents. It's sort of ironically in this beautiful place overlooking the Mediterranean, and so much of Gaza is like that. It's beautiful, and so we go in this camp, sort of. I mean, at this point, aid after Casa was still kind of a sexy thing. There's still aid there, but nonetheless, it's like pretty messed up. There's 150 families, and that amounts to I think well over 1,000 people sharing one bathroom, all living in tents. So we go, and we're talking to this woman in her tent. She like invites us in and offers us tea from the like UN relief agencies like tea box thing, and she had one kid, and she started telling us about how she saw all the rest of her kids die as they were running away, getting shot in the back by the Israeli army. And she had this one kid left. She was like, this kid has nightmares. And she's talking about this, like the sound of the planes and how she just can't hear anymore, and she can't get the sound of the planes out of her head, and just like her crying. And I had a friend there who didn't know Arabic, and so we were translating. Like my friend Heba was translating, and at one point Heba was just like, "This is untranslatable. Like you can't even say this." And then I mean that sort of had an impact on me, just and especially as I continued to organize to come back in May. And so in May, we went back to the same place, and the same woman was there, and she remembered me, and she started crying, and she was like, I knew you'd come back. And then it was just kind of like, at that point, the camp is worse. There's no more aid anymore. The tents are like fading. There's no food. Like the bathrooms are worse. And it's like, okay, great. Like I brought like 40 students here, and they're all having the same experience that I had 3 months ago. But like, what about this woman's situation? It's not improving. What can I do? And it just sort of was like almost a hopeless feeling. But then it was also like almost sickening. Like she remembered me, and she had some like hope, and then it's like, well, what have I done? I haven't really. And in May we did organize the $3,000 kitchen kit distribution in that camp. But it's like it's never enough, because people in Palestine, they don't want aid. They want their dignity. They want the siege to end. They want their homeland. And I mean, poverty in the Gaza Strip is political. And that, I guess, is my most memorable moment. It depends how we come to the conversation. I think I rant about it a lot. I mean, I think the main idea that I would get across to people is that it's political. There's no way you could talk about poverty in Palestine without making it a political thing. I think the number one thing that Americans can do to be an ally to Palestine is support the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And I guess stuff about solidarity, and just that if you're not Palestinian, you have to think about what solidarity means, what being an ally means, and knowing that your activism is going to mean stepping up sometimes, and also sometimes stepping back.
Well, I do believe I'm a witness, and it means to me that I can't be silent. There are moments when I think I would have been better off not going the first time, not knowing, because now that I know what goes on, my life is so changed. Palestine comes before most things in my life, and once you see what's going on, it's impossible to be silent. I couldn't live with myself if I refused to speak somewhere, if I refused to go somewhere, refused to help in any situation that I think is meaningful and worthy. And I think once you witness something like that, you know, you're trapped. You just can no longer pretend that everything is okay. Yeah, I am a witness, but being a witness can be very, very demanding. And in my case, it is demanding, but, bring it on. Well, I write. I was in Cairo in December and January as part of the Gaza Freedom March, where we had hoped to get back into Gaza, which we did not get into Gaza, but we made quite a fuss, and the Israeli police were recruited to contain us, and I had a kind of a bit of an experience there where I was kind of roughed up by the police on one occasion, and I lost my shoe, and I wrote. For my friends, I wrote a little piece called Shoeless in Cairo and sent it to my friends, a couple of my friends. And within 24 hours, it was all over. I didn't even think of that. I didn't write it for publication. If I had, I would have been a little more articulate. But I didn't edit it or anything. And I was quite pleased because there's a lot about me on the internet, but that was the first time I ever wrote anything that you can actually Google without my name, and that was really satisfying for me. That if you Google "shoeless in Cairo," you'll get dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of links to articles about this because it was picked up around the world. I write, of course, to the editors of various newspapers. Some frequently get published. That doesn't necessarily get on the internet, but other things that I've written like that. And the thing that I wrote for Counterpunch after I was hacked by the settlers, that gets all over the internet. And I speak. I don't like to speak. It's one of the most difficult things for me to do. I don't like to get up in front of a crowd of people and talk, but I decided that I have to do everything I can do. So when if I can't find anybody to do it for me, I get up and talk about Palestine, about my experiences. I was just up in Northern California at the Sibyl Conference. That's the Palestinian Jewish, and that was wonderful. We had Palestinians there, but an incredible number of American Jews go to these things. This is what gives me the greatest hope. There's so many members of the American Jewish community who have joined the struggle for the Palestinians. One of the biggest problems in the Middle East is America's bias toward Israel. But Israel is a special case, and Israel is allowed to get away with anything it wants. And Israel, any legitimate criticism against Israel or what Israel does is immediately labeled anti-Semitism. And so it's very difficult for people who don't know the position there and know that there's a big difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. They back down because if they dare to criticize Israel, they know somebody's going to scream and call them a racist and an anti-Semite, and so they back away. I post all the time in Haaretz. Haaretz is the Israeli newspaper. You probably know it's the kind of the leftist newspaper, and actually I get my news about what's going on in Israel from there because I'm never going to get it in the American media, not even hardly on the internet media. Of course, I demonstrate. I'm very lucky that the Israeli consulate is about 5 blocks from my house. So whenever we protest outside the Israeli consulate, I'm always there with my Palestinian flag.